everyone, Trace here. Today we'll be making a hibiscus card in a wreath formation, and we'll be using the technique with masking, and it's really fun, and we are going to be using a good bit of different color inks to give you the effects of the veins in the flowers. And I'll go over all of those ink colors as we go along. But isn't that fun? So what you're going to need is the stamp set Happy Hibiscus from Maymay Made It. And I'm also using the Sunflower Wishes stamp set from Maymay Made It. And I'm using the Sentiment Thinking of You. And I am using some 3D foam squares. And that's for the sentiment. And one of the main things that you'll need is some masking paper. And this is Brutus Monroe. And that stuff is fantastic. But if you don't have that, you can use some Post-it notes or any other masking paper that you may have. And the types of inks that we'll be using is a lot of the distress inks, but also some Memento inks in different colors, and I'll go over each of those as I go along. And art glitter glue, some cutter bee scissors, an ink blending tool, and I'm going to use a scrap piece of paper for just stamping off and things like that, but that will do it. Let's get started. So one of the things that you want to do for prepping this card is making some masks, and you're going to need one sheet of the masking paper, and all I did was stamped out the largest image, and here is my actual, I have it stuck down on here to preserve it because it can be used over and over again. So it's just sticky on one side, and I just stamped out the largest image right on this back side here, the one with the white, and also the other image, the smaller flower. I'll pull that off of here so you can see that. It is very sticky, but that's what you want it to be. So that's my other image. So I just stamped those out onto this paper here, and I fussy cut with my cutter bee scissors. You do want to be very specific when you are cutting that out. You want every little edge to be cut out. It's important that you have that full image on that masking paper. So after you have cut those two images out, go ahead and put them aside. Don't take the backing off of it just yet until you need it, just to keep it sticky and so forth, just to restore that stickiness. So just keep that aside, and if you wanted to, you can stamp out it multiple times. I just did one of each size, and I'll show you how I just kind of move it along, but you can stamp out multiple ones, make it easier if you'd like to. So as you can see, I was stamping out my color combinations just to see what looked nice together, and I just did that ahead of time, and I do recommend that you do that, especially if you have a lot of different colors and you just want to kind of play around and see what looks good together. So I'll go ahead and flip that over just so it's not too confusing. So you want to start off with a card front, and this measures 4 by 5 1/4, and it's just regular 65-pound cardstock. And I took one of the I don't know what it's called. This is actually something you would throw away, from some tape, and it's 3 inches in diameter. And I just keep it around just because it's a nice perfect circle. So in order to get my shape for the wreath, this is what I use to lightly pencil mark a circle. My other one, I did it up towards the front. I'm going to, for this one, go ahead and do it towards the bottom, and just a very, very light pencil mark. And this later on will be erased so you won't see it. Just helps me to keep the shape of the wreath. So I'm going to start off with stamping the largest image, and it's this one here on the stamp set, and it's the one that's the full image here, full leaves. It's not this one that has just the edges. So what I'm going to do is, just for a variation, I am going to do the opposite colors of what I did my first card. So these are my first 3 large ones. I'm going to do these color combinations instead. So just mixing up a bit. So I'm going to start with the orange combination. And what I used with that is these 2 colors of Distress inks, the Spiced Marmalade and the Abandoned Coral. So you want to start off with the lightest color, and you want to ink that up with your stamp. And I know the block is pretty small compared to the stamp. Just make sure that it's inked up very well. The whole flower is inked up. So just ink that up. And because I have a combination of 3, I'm going to go in kind of an order of here, here, and roughly there. So what I'm going to do is ink down on half of the circle. So it's going to be, half the flower is on one side, the other on the inner side of the circle. So just press down. And with the Distress inks, you'll notice that they come out kind of blotchy, and that actually, to me, adds to the effect of a flower. I think that it really looks nice. And I've noticed with this Distress inks, they will fade as they dry. The color will fade just a bit. So that's nice too. So there's my image here, and I'm just going to ink off on my scrap paper just to save a little time. So I'm going to go on to the next color. I'm going to do 3 different large ones, and I'll be right back. So I just finished the 3 larger solid images and the 3 solid smaller images from the stamp set, and these are the inks that I used for that. And you want that to be the lighter color of the 2. So the pink one is Memento Rosebud. This one is Distress Scattered Straw. This is Shaded Lilac. This is Spiced Marmalade. This is Peacock Feathers and Salty Ocean. So next I'm going to stamp the darker color veins in the insides of these. So I went ahead and did the inner veins, and these are the colors that I used for that. And they are the darker kind of version of that. And as I tell you the colors, I will go ahead and do the purple one, and I'm using Memento Grape Jelly. And there is a little trick to this. You do want to kind of practice it beforehand, and because you need to get it just right onto the flower, the main base one, because they do match up very, very nicely. So I just kind of ink them up, and I go by, there is a part where it has 3 lines to it that are kind of evened off, and I know that those match up to this leaf that's right here that kind of sticks out and is fairly narrow. And so I know that those match up. And also you'll notice that the very, very center matches up with the shape of the center in the flower. So I am going to maybe get my head in the way, I'm not sure. Stamp that out. And I'm going to let that transfer just a sec. And so, like I said, that one there is the grape jelly. And this one with the orange combination is Abandoned Coral. This one here is Mermaid Lagoon. This one is Danube Blue in the Memento. And the pink one is the Lilac Posies in Memento. and this combination is fossilized amber. And so those are the combinations that I came up with. Let me bring it a little closer so you can kind of see the combinations there, and they work really well. It looks really nice when the inner color is darker. So now we're going to move on to the masking part, and that's really fun. I love how it reveals, you know, the bottom layer. And so what we're going to do is put leaves all the way around, but we're going to mask it off first. So these are my masks. You can see that I've already used it, and I'm just going to cover up what I've already stamped, making sure it lines up perfectly. And it's just about, that's good. And so now I'm going to do the leaves. So I have loaded up my blocks with the multiple different leaves. What I'm going to do with the in between each one is the larger leaf that is the solid image. So I'm going to put that on my block. And so a lot of these blocks that I'm using, I'm double loading. That just means I have a block on each side. It just goes a lot faster. So there is the larger one, and I have some other ones. I have the smaller solid image, I have some little sprigs, and I have this little, I'm not sure what it's called. It's just really pretty, and it looks really nice when it comes off on the edge right here. In here, I love that particular leaf. So I'm going to use the Memento bamboo leaves, and I'm going to start off with just the very center. So these two are masked off, so I'm going to only work right now on these two areas. I'm not going to go over to these until I mask those off. So I'm going to work on the very center. I'm just going to use the largest solid leaf here, and I'm just going to probably turn it this way and just stamp down. And don't worry about stamping right over the masks. That's what they're for. And so, because after this section I'm going to pull that off, and that's the magic part to me. When I pull that off, it just looks really neat, because what happens is the leaves now become the back part of the arrangement, so they're kind of in behind all of the actual hibiscus flowers, which I just think is a really fun technique. And so I'm going to add a couple more. I'm probably going to use this little one that I love. And I have to be careful with my block here. I have a double image on there, so I want to make sure I don't have any ink there at all. So I just stamp that out. Let's see, this is going to be my area where I want my sentiment, so I don't want too much going on right there. So I think I'm going to probably bring this one off to this side here, ink that, and so that's going to come right off of there. So go ahead and start with doing some flowers and leaves around here, and in a second I will move on and reveal those flowers there and move on to the other flowers. I'm going to move my masks, and what I'm going to do is I'll move this one over to here, because I don't want to do the in between these two just yet. So just peel back your mask very gently. And now you can see the flower emerge, and all of the greenery is behind it. Just love that. So I'm going to move these over to here, making sure I have it oriented correctly. And lined up as perfect as I can. Just move on to the next, and here will be the orange. Doesn't that look so cool? I'm going to move the mask over to this one, and then I'm going to fill in the in-betweens. So the last thing to do for stamping is to put the stamens and the seeds in the very centers. So I'm using the Distress Vintage Photo, and for the seeds themselves is mustard seed. So I'm just going to stamp up, and I kind of do it in different areas coming off. I just kind of see where there's an opening, and this would be a good little spot. I do the stamen part, and then I put the seeds on after. So I'm going to put it kind of towards the center, coming off to the edge. Okay, once that is done, then I do the seeds, which is yellow. So I use this here. And just put the seeds right around that stem there. So next I stamped out the Thinking of You on a strip of the craft cardstock, and that is measured in an A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And all I did was take some Vintage Photo and put a little bit on the edges, and I just inked up all of the edge of the sentiment. And then I'm going to go around the entire edge of the card front as well. So I just finished this card up. I just glued that card front down, and I popped up the sentiment on some of the smaller foam squares, and that will finish that card. So here are 2 different versions of that card. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and like, and any comments, I love to read those. And also don't forget to hit the bell so you will get the notifications for any time I put up a video. Well, anyway, and have a good day, and I will see you next time.